We want to get into our next bracket. It's the A24 bracket. A24 has put out a lot of my favorite movies, Art's favorite movies over the past few years. It's kind of come onto the scene really hot and with a very cool indie tone, but these are really interesting movies from really interesting filmmakers, and it's another one of the brackets that's kind of been making the rounds on Twitter, so we felt like we'd tackle this one head first and get a chance to talk about some of our favorite movies also from the past few years. So let's start it off with the first matchup. This one should go relatively quick, I think. It's Lady Bird versus Morris in America, or Morris from America, excuse me.
Have you seen Morris from America?
I haven't, but I've heard great things about it. It's one
It's a
that
cute
I've been
movie.
meaning to catch up with. But yeah, nothing that I've heard about it suggests it's anywhere on the level of Lady Bird.
I haven't seen both. I can tell you it's nowhere on the level of Lady Bird, so definitely Lady Bird.
The next matchup is between 20th Century Women and Swiss Army Man. Now, I think 20th Century Women was actually kind of an overlooked movie. I think there are elements to that movie that are really fun and well told and creative, but Swiss Army Man is like one of the most ingenious,
All right, good.
creative, unique comedies of the last 20 years or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
love
agree.
the Daniels, the directors.
20th Century Woman, it's well told, I guess. I'm not a fan of it. I can't say I'm a fan of it. You know
Yeah.
my position on a specific dinner scene and menstruation and all that stuff. I am not a fan of it. Swiss Army Man, when I first saw it, I said, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Then I thought about it and I said, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. To this day, it's in a commercial. Ba, 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 ba,
Yeah, the
ba.
montage song. It's lasting the movie.
It's outlasted the movie. I don't even know what the commercial, but it's a nationwide commercial. It is bigger than you think it is. Daniels themselves, I don't know why they haven't made something in a bit. I think they've been working on some online
Yeah, they're
stuff.
working on a new project that I think Joe and Anthony Russo are also producing. So
okay.
it should be interesting.
All right. No, definitely Swiss Army Man. It's not. I don't think it's weird for the sake of being weird. It seems like it many times, but I think it's very authentic when you see their work.
Yeah. I think I've actually did a kind of look at some of their music videos, and it's interesting.
Music videos
if you
are dope.
Look at what they've done.
Yeah.
They've kind of been building to Swiss Army Man in an
Exactly.
interesting way. So
They did
they're
the,
really creative, fun filmmakers.
They did the what's it called? Turn Down for What video.
Yes. Yes.
And one of my favorites is the one that they did for Manchester Orchestra, I think is the name of the band.
Yeah.
I love that song, and I love that music video.
Yeah. So
And how they filmed it is really cool, too.
So definitely check out Swiss Army Man if you haven't. Our next matchup, I actually think this is an interesting discussion. It Comes at Night versus Obvious Child. These are two movies that I would say are not loved by many, but have their fair share of fans, like people who genuinely like both movies and think both movies are doing interesting things. One of our first Intercut videos was actually us discussing It Comes at Night and the ways that we thought the movie exceeded its marketing and kind of was done wrong by its marketing. I'm someone who actually likes Obvious Child a lot, thinking that, it's really an interesting take on something that is a common social taboo and, really looks at it in a genuine way. So I'm a little bit divided here, but I feel like I might go Obvious Child. What about you?
Listen, I don't adore any of these movies. I do think they both suffer from that. It Comes at Night with the trailer in the way that it was marketed, and that's why so many people don't like it. Obvious Child with the obvious issue that a lot of people they don't want to deal with it at all. I think they both tackle it. They both tackle it well. Again, I'm playing the bracket game. I'm okay with you choosing whichever. I personally would pick It Comes at Night. And I personally am very curious to see. I don't know if it ended up in the cut, but that deleted scene from the trailer that they show a bit with the house on fire, the one that Joel Edgerton says is his best performance ever given in that scene, and then it got cut out of the movie. I'm very curious to see that, and even more so, I'm more curious to see the follow up from that director than from the director of Obvious Child. I don't know if they did Landline. But I did prefer Landline, and I know that it has Jenny Slate in it. I don't know if it's the same director, though.
Same director.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, well then I'm
Gillian
still more
Last
interested. I'm still more interested in It Comes at Night's director.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's worth noting that I think there's a lot more. I'm much more interested in his career. What's his name? It's not John David Mitchell, is it?
That's the guy from It Follows.
Oh yeah. But for whatever it's worth, I mean, it Comes at Night is a really interesting movie. One that I've probably thought of more since I saw it than since Obvious Child. Even though I maybe liked Obvious Child a little bit more.
There's a lot to chew on it, but I would say if you did like Obvious Child, which it'll win it for this one, but I would definitely check out Landline.
Nice. Okay, so let's give that one to Obvious Child. Trey Edward Schultz, by the way.
There we go. That's the man. That's the boy.
It Comes at Night director.
Deep voice.
We move on to a really good matchup between Amy and Good Time. Amy is the Oscar-winning, I believe, documentary about the late Amy Winehouse. It at least was nominated, right?
Yeah, I know it was nominated. I'm pretty sure it was nominated. I don't know about it winning. But it's interesting that A24 is even delving into documentaries, too, which I think is really cool. And it was a good one.
Yeah. This comes from the same guy who directed what was the Brazilian race car driver movie? Jeez, Asif Kapadia is the guy who directed it.
Of course. Yeah, the man. Yeah.
No, it's there. He directed.
He did
Senna,
have it.
which
So
is
you doubted yourself. You doubted yourself, and you should have.
I gotta go with my heart. Yeah, he directed Senna. But even though Amy is a really well-liked or loved, I guess, by some documentary, I mean, I gotta go Good Time, not just because
I'm on Good Time, too.
I really enjoyed that movie. It's one of Robert Pattinson's best performances, and it's got a really cool look to it. I'm big in the tank for that movie.
The worst part about Good Time is how many people hyped it up. Which it needs to be, because then people wouldn't have seen it, right? People aren't going to give it a chance unless it's hyped up. The part about it is that if it gets too hyped up, and especially when you let the hype build because you're waiting on the movie to come out on DVD, it ends up ruining it for you. Which is why I always say watch the movies as soon as you can, especially if you're a film lover and you want it to be untainted at all. Because I remember going into it with so much hype, and then I was like, did it live up to it? And then I slept on it, and I was like, nah, that is a good movie. Yeah, that is a good movie.
That's like the Lady Bird conundrum, right? Lady Bird's kind of a small story, and everybody's like hyping it up for Oscars and stuff. And it's a great movie. It's just not like a huge story or anything.
Exactly. That's what makes it so good.
Yes.
And then it gets overshadowed because of the Good Time, definitely.
Another interesting matchup: Ex Machina versus Slow West.
I'm not wasting my time with this one. Let's move on.
Going straight to Ex Machina.
I am not a fan of Slow West in any. I love how it looks.
Yeah.
I love how it looks.
Slow.
Ex Machina all the way.
All right.
Unless you have a rebuttal.
No, I don't have one. I'm a huge Ex Machina fan. I think it's a much better movie. Most Violent Year versus A Killing of a Sacred Deer. I love my boy Yorgos.
I know you do.
He's a really, really interesting dude. But man, A Most Violent Year, it might be J.C. Sandor's best movie. It's got a great Oscar performance.
His best
great
Jessica Chastain performance.
I think
before
that
Molly's
game super slept on. It's like I feel like it's a modern day Godfather or something. I mean, maybe that's too much.
I ain't going that far, but I get what you're saying. I follow your sentiments. In terms of mobster movies, that is one of the ones definitely up there, while other ones like Black Mass and I don't know, any other mobster movies. We haven't gotten a good mobster movie in a while. This would have been one of the most recent ones. That's the closest one that we've gotten. So
yeah, I like that one a lot. I'm going with Most Violent Year also.
Yeah.
So here's where we got to
represent for my boy. Where we got to go a little bit. Yeah, this is the one I'll agree with you.
Lobster versus Green Room. Now, I'm a little bit disappointed that I'm not going to be able to show a little more love to Green Room, a really fun, action-heavy Jeremy Saulnier movie where a band gets trapped in a punk neo-Nazi club and has to fight their way out. I mean, that's a really fun movie to watch with a bunch of friends and a bunch of beers. I would suggest watching that if you haven't. But man, The Lobster's so good.
It is. But so is Green Room.
Oh, interesting.
Green Room is pretty dope. The whole aesthetic of Green Room. It's got Aaliyah Shawkat in it. They get the one scene with the hand. Evil Charles Xavier.
Yeah, and one of the last really great Anton Yelchin performances too.
Exactly, and the whole shootout, when the shootouts happen, I don't wear red laces, and I avoid those any way I can. Anytime I see black boots outside, I walk the other way. And the ending, at first I was like, really, that's the ending? And I thought, and I'm like, oh, that's actually the abruptness of it. is beautiful. If I'm not mistaken, is Ramona Flowers in this movie? Isn't she in the beginning? I think she's in the beginning for a little bit. If I'm mistaken, I'm mistaken. But I think she's the girl who starts the incident. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not so sure about that.
Maybe I'm not so sure. Maybe I'm just thinking about her, but yeah.
So look, The Lobster though. Let's talk about this because
I know
The Lobster got an Academy Award nomination for Best Screenplay. People were talking about it as this really inventive comedy, one of the most inventive looks at relationships and why I don't know, man. It's I think it's hitting on more levels than Green Room's hitting on for me.
See, for me, it goes for Yorgos. It goes Dogtooth.
Yeah.
Dogtooth second watch. The Dogtooth discussions. Then The Lobster. And Killing ain't on there. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Killing ain't
I
on
was
there.
waiting.
No. So... Give me one more. Give me one more thing about why The Lobster. Convince the people and I to be on your side. Because I'm on for it. I like The Lobster. I remember watching The Lobster, getting sucked into it. That is where Yorgos, if you don't know his style, it works great. Both of his the first two big features, it works great. It does not work for me in Killing of a Sacred Deer, but
Yeah, and I'll say that I agree with that. It's not as on point in Killing of a Sacred Deer. I feel like The Lobster, the first half of that movie has some of the darkest, funniest moments of any comedy in the last few years. I think that the way that it actually reflects on society and is a social satire is the kind of look at relationships that hasn't really been done. And I don't know if I feel as much resonance from Green Room. It's a fun time, but Lobster's kind of fun too. I don't
John
know.
C. Reilly's in it, right?
In what?
Isn't John C. Reilly in it?
John C. Reilly, Colin Farrell, Rachel Weisz, Ben Whishaw.
Who's the one who bleeds?
Ben Whishaw.
Okay.
Oh, and lesser known, the girl from The End of the Effing World is the girl that Ben Whishaw ends up with.
Ain't that illegal? Holy shit.
She's much older than she looks. She's like 27.
Oh. Ain't that still illegal for End of the Effing World then? Alright, I'll go The Lobster.
We can go Green Room, man. I like Green Room a lot too.
Hey, you know what? It's about relationships. I'll give you this one. I'll leave the neo-Nazis.
I feel like you've been giving me a lot, but I don't know, man. I'll go with The Lobster.
But I swear, if we argue on this next one, I ain't giving it to you.
All right, so Room versus American Honey. We got Brie Larson versus Sasha Lane and Shia LaBeouf. I'm going American Honey. No, sorry, I just wanted to see your face. I'm going the Room. I'm going Room. It's not The Room.
Not The Room, because that would have been the bracket.
That's
would be
a whole
over.
other discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
it's good. It's great.
I don't love Room, but I think it's a better movie than American Honey.
Really, you don't love Room?
No, I mean, I think Brie Larson and the other performances are really excellent, and that's most of
that's
what...
Sir Jacob Tremblay to you, okay?
And that's most of what works for me. I think there's some interesting things in it, but I don't know, I wanted a little bit more from it.
I think the worst part of the movie is the trailer, and what ruined it for me, I wasn't even watching. I was walking by, it was the cinema, like when you're in the theater and they play the trailers outside? It ruined it for me. And I was like, wow, I did not need to know outside of the title. You know what I mean? It would have been a lot more impacting to not know what happens over a third way. Exactly. But when they do get to that point and more characters are introduced, I like that dynamic between the mom and her. I thought that was very interesting. And it's very subtle because they never get into the idea of like, well, I feel like this and I feel like that. You're seeing the reactions of how one of them now wants to be way overprotective because they're trying to make up for lost time. And the other one's also trying to make up for lost time. But they also have literally, 8-9-year-old?
Yeah.
Who they're trying to take care of. Let's talk about American Honey because I think you might like it a bit more than I do.
Yes.
I'm not the biggest fan of it because I feel a lot of scenes can be cut. I get the idea of the natural feel to it, that it feels so authentic, so real. And I do. What's the actress's name?
Sasha Lane.
She has a future.
Oh yeah. We've both seen Cameron Post now, and she's great in that too. Sundance.
Oh, you saw Cameron Post?
Have we not talked about this?
No, when did you see it?
Okay, that's a discussion for another time.
Okay, yeah, that's a discussion for another time. But yeah, I was like, I've seen the miseducation. Oh yeah, that's the ending of the title. The miseducation of Cameron Post. That's how long it is. Yes. So we're on the same page.
Yeah.
1000%. She's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's
And
a
she's
lot
great
of
in
what
this movie.
works about American Honey is it's got that charisma and that energy. Like, I like
Right.
hanging out with those characters,
Cool.
but it
I don't,
is a
but-
fairly listless, plotless movie.
Which is
and
fine.
I like movies like that. I think The Room does more.
Thank you. I'll
Yeah.
just leave it at that. I'll say nothing more.
Moonlight versus Krisha. Look, I like Krisha a lot. You wanna go and talk about why Krisha's great before we just go ahead and give this to Moonlight?
Bro, Krisha's fantastic because, like we were just saying, we're saying that we always want to see the next to the director. The guy who made Krisha made It Comes at Night.
Right.
And that's why I'm curious to see where he goes on his next one because he literally elevates it. If you're a filmmaker, this is especially keen for you. This man spent like, what was it? Way less than $100,000, maybe
yeah.
50. It could have been even 10 for all I know. I remember just
Cast
listening
his
to his
own
interviews
aunt
on
as
it.
the lead of the film.
That's his aunt in the lead of the film. I believe he was the cinematographer for the whole thing itself. It all takes place in one room, and then still the intricacies that he put within the movie itself. The way that he framed it, and he's like, I wanted you to feel something without realizing that you were there, without cutting to it.
Right.
So you don't even realize it. Like, I'm that guy when I'm watching a movie, I'm like, are we zooming in a bit? So I start looking at the corners to see if things are getting cropped. This movie does it to the point where you go, when the heck did we get so close to these characters? Mm-hmm. And
Yeah,
it
there's
feels
a
like
lot
a
of
horror film without it being a horror film.
There's a lot of really cool filmmaker tricks in that. So I think
Exactly.
few episodes ago, we got a question, what are some good movies to watch if you want to learn more about film? Krisha's a great one because it does a lot with very little.
Exactly.
But
Very
Moonlight is
little.
Moonlight, and it's going to win this matchup.
Yeah, Moonlight's gonna go a long way. Y'all know Moonlight.
The
Y'all
next
know Moonlight.
matchup is The Spectacular Now versus Under the Skin.
Oh, we get in there. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting matchup. If I didn't like The Spectacular Now so much, I'd fight a lot harder for Under the Skin.
So you're not fighting for Under the Skin?
You want to fight for Under the Skin?
Absolutely not. I have a lot of problems with Under the Skin.
Okay.
I will say this: the more that I watch Under the Skin, the more that I like it. The more
Yeah.
that I'm like, oh, that is very interesting. And then the more that I end up watching other movies, and I go, oh, okay, who cares? I'm trying to think of recently. I saw an alien movie, and I was, oh yeah, the little thing called Annihilation. We talked about this.
Yeah.
Ending of Annihilation, beginning of Under the Skin. Annihilation did it better.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, I think there's a lot of really interesting things going on in Under the Skin, and it's got
Definitely.
it's got maybe the best score of any
The score is the best
A24
part.
movie, and
Well-
the cinematography is also like one of the best.
Yes. In the
just
room?
the visuals of it are so compelling and unique. There's a
It
reason
is-
why other movies have.
It's better than The Spectacular Now. It really is better than The Spectacular Now. Let's not lie. It is better than The Spectacular Now. My only issue with it is the idea of I'm not a big fan of the naturalistic route that they went, where you can't even hear what's going on, right? When you have all this all this really great filmmaking and the visuals and the cinematography to it, and then you literally start using a GoPro, the frame rate is less in order to be able to catch these authentic things, and then half
Yeah.
of them you couldn't use because for whatever reason you just wanted to swindle real people. I did not get the point of that. And on top of that, I don't like the fact that the director himself, this ain't to bash the guy, but it's to bash the guy. I remember because I was there for a Q&A for it, and I know some people really like this. I am not a fan of it. I'm okay with ambiguity, but I need the director to know what he's being ambiguous about.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I need... One thing is him saying, I'm not going to tell you. Another thing I'm saying, I ain't even noticed that.
So let's talk about Spectacular Now for a quick second, though. Are you a fan of it though? Because I actually think Spectacular Now is a really solid movie.
Yeah, I'm a fan of it. I love The Spectacular. It was the first time that, what's his name, your boy Andrew Neiman, I was like, yeah, this guy, he can
Miles
actually be
Teller.
likable. Yeah, because I always saw him as the jerk.
Yeah.
And for Shailene Woodley, that's my favorite Shailene Woodley performance, and I just love the whole idea of it. I remember this was one of the first movies I was going like, I want to go to Sundance.
Yeah, no, and I'm not going to spoil the twist for people who haven't seen it, but there's a twist in that movie that is really effective in a way that I did not see coming and is worth noting. So
Under
we're
the
giving it
Skin-
Spectacular Now or Under the Skin?
I'm saying it right now. Under the Skin is the better movie.
Yeah.
But I've told you my problem, and I think they're very fair problems that I have with it. It is one of the best, probably the best score out of all of these. But I'm playing the game again that it don't matter for the next bracket, so you can give it to whichever you want, my man.
Yeah, I'll give it to Spectacular Now, if only because it's the less
I
confounding
enjoy it more.
movie. I
Yeah.
would recommend Spectacular Now to more people.
That's 100% true. If you want to see Under the Skin, I say go see Annihilation.
The Bling Ring versus Enemy. Don't think we're going to take long before we give this one to our boy Villeneuve.
You can end the bracket right there.
The Disaster Artist versus The End of the Tour.
Oh, we're about to get in a fight. Please don't tell me we're about to get in a fight, because I know you like The End of the Tour.
I do like The End of the Tour, but I don't know if I like it more than The Disaster Artist.
Well, since you're vulnerable right now, let me help you out, alright?
Yeah.
The Disaster Artist
Yeah.
takes the worst movie ever made and tried to make it the best movie ever made, right? Literally, it got stopped at a certain point. Even though I didn't agree with it, it got stopped because of other reasons that it couldn't make it all the way to the Oscars. But in and of itself, how many times have you seen The Disaster Artist?
I mean, only once, but I want to see it
Oh,
more.
dang it, what the heck?
No,
But you
no,
want to see it more, right?
That's a good, fair point, because I haven't seen The End of the Tour since I saw it that one time, and even though I liked it a lot, I don't know if I'm eager
don't
to
know if you wanna
necessarily
see it
see it
again.
again. It's also an interesting point you made about taking the worst movie and turning into something great, because David Foster Wallace, to a lot of people, is one of the best essayists, and I don't know if the End of the Tour is as good as his
Infinite
writing.
Jest, and yeah, it's not. That's a really great point to put in it.
So-
1000%. But The Disaster Artist is even more than that. I will agree that for a lot of people, the ending is very like, oh, it's way too happy. They Steve Jobs it. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They Steve Jobs the ending. But it works. Because the whole point that I've always seen with The Room is the fact that if this guy was able to make it and embrace the fact that it maybe wasn't the movie that he wanted it to be, but still was able to go around and show his movie. How many movies you shown in the theater?
Not as many as Tommy Wiseau.
Not as many as Tommy Wiseau, right? And this movie talks about that as long as you're making a movie with your friend and it makes it up on screen, then there's something there. But it's not just saying that what he did was right. It also tells you work with other people, or else you get something like The Room.
It's a really good movie. It's just independent of all the other things around it. It's really enjoyable, and there's a lot of interesting things about it.
Did you see the after credits?
After credits?
There's an after credits to The Disaster Artist. It has a little tidbit
man.
for all of you who didn't know that. So that's another reason to see it again, and it is hilarious.
Nice. Okay, next matchup: The Vitch versus Mississippi Grind. I don't
Stop. Ben Mendelsohn in Mississippi Grind. Did you ever see it?
Yeah, man.
And what'd you think?
I mean, I thought the acting was good, but I don't remember much
Stop
else.
tiptoeing around it.
I
Go
don't
for the
remember.
witch. Let's go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, The Florida Project versus Locke. Now, I think a lot of people out there really ride for Locke. I think you ride for Locke a bit, right? No.
I enjoyed the movie, but then people wrote it. Locke is always literally, I'm not even kidding with you. Locke is always the example I use when we start talking about this is the movie that you'll see at the end of the year. And then you get to the end of the year, right? Like you heard that person say it in March and you just patiently wait.
Yeah,
you just
no
stop,
one's saying it.
And then you see at the end and you're
I'm here, I'm listening for it.
Yeah, I'm listening for it, but you're specifically bookmarked that one person and going, but where Locke though?
Right?
That's what I see. That I call that the Locke effect. I see that with so many people nowadays, where they talk about, oh, this is the movie and it's going to give. And it's not bad to say that, right? I'm sure some people will have Black Panther. I know many people had Get Out, but a lot of people, when it came to Locke, were like, this is so innovative. This is going to, and then it happened. It's like, no.
And look, like, A Locke is a solid movie. I think it's a really interesting experiment, and
I think it's a great play.
Challenge in how limiting but using the film form in a different way. I don't think it holds a candle to The Florida Project. I thought The Florida Project was great.
Not. The Florida Project makes me want to go to the slums of Florida. I ain't going into my car. I don't get excited. Oh, man, I look like Locke. Let me tell you something about Locke since we're canceling it here. You're right. You can see it as a very good use of filmmaking with simplicity. I see it as the behind the scenes. I see it as a very good way of making use of what you got, very limited amount of time, because Tom Hardy was blowing up at this point.
Yep.
I don't know if you know the story. Have we talked about the story?
I mean, I think we might have talked about something
that the guy came in to cash the favor that Tom Hardy owed him from back in the day. He was like, hey, you blowing up right now. Let me catch you on this favor. Tom Hardy said, but I'm a little sick, and his agent said you're only gonna get him for like 2 days, and he's sick. So literally, they had to include a certain point. The medication he's taking, the Benadryl, whatever it was his literal medication.
Yeah, his character is sick because Tom Hardy was sick. He's
during
driving that specific BMW because BMW gave them that car for the movie. It's an interesting.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for it as a movie, though. That goes to the Florida Project.
While We're Young versus Free Fire, I think this is an easy one. I'm going While We're Young. I'm a person who rides for We're Young harder than most people. Mm-hmm. But I don't think there's anybody that's going to really say Free Fire's like that much competition.
Free Fire came out last year?
Yeah.
That's a problem. I forgot Free Fire the week afterwards.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are in the same boat with you in that one. So I'm going While We're Young.
While We're Young.
Spring Breakers versus A Ghost Story. I'm kind of curious to know where you go with this one because I know which way I'm leaning. I don't know if I didn't tell you.
All right, let me start with A Ghost Story. I saw A Ghost Story at Sundance, and I truly feel A Ghost Story is one of those where people come out being more pretentious than they really think they are with the movie, and right. I think other people overly hate it and don't give it the time of day. I'm not a big fan of the pie scene. I get the intimacy of it. It's like watching somebody else, but there's certain feelings that you can only get in real life, right? Because we know she's acting, so we just see her acting. The idea of intruding on someone would have to be a documentary. Right. You get what I mean? Do you get what That's my issue with the pie scene, because I get what he was going for, but you do that for a real person, right? Yeah, not an actress. Mm-hmm. But it was cool. She ate the whole pie. I love the score in it. I really love the main track that was in the movie, that I believe what's his name is supposed to be singing. I love that what's his name is covered up, especially when you consider the scandals and everything he was in after winning an award, Casey Affleck. And I think one of the worst parts of the movie, it ain't the Kesha cameo, it's the guy who just tells you everything that happens in the movie.
Right.
Spring Breakers, on the other hand, I'm not going to say I loved when I first saw it. I'm not going to say my girlfriend loved watching it with me when I first saw it. But there's a specific house scene. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
That is all in one take. It's so ballsy. I'm not a fan of Harmony Korine. I really am not. But there are moments where I still to this day find myself going, Spring Break.
Look, that's the thing. Look, I'm also not a fan of Harmony Korine. I think he's a little bit of like an American Lars von Trier in a way, in that he just like makes these really like shocking, vulgar movies
for the sake of it.
Kind of for the sake of it, but
as opposed to the Daniels like we were just talking about.
Yes, but a lot of it is really memorable and kind of feels, reflective of society in a way.
It does. And he said he puts it in your face.
I think if you watch Spring Breakers and view it as like the different types of girl that one, modern girl would want to be, rather than these 4 different personalities, it takes on a new, real interesting layer. I think there's a lot of...
for Spring Breakers, aren't you?
I think I have to, man. I kind of think I have to. I think you can show me more. I think there's more interesting frames in Spring Breakers. It's the look of the movie has not really been matched. And I know Ghost Story has its own look too.
It does. It's cool. Very cool, the whole ghostly Polaroid type thing to it.
But the way that Spring Breakers is both like satirizing and glamorizing this whole spring break culture.
I agree with you.
I think that's something that more people can relate to, or at least like relate to seeing. And man, like just stuff like James Franco's character is more popular than the movie, and the movie was fairly popular. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, it's rare to see that kind of transcendence from an indie movie. Not to mention, this is the movie that got A24 started.
Are you serious?
I think this is A24's first release.
What the heck? Why? That's a way to start. That's a first impression. Look, I don't mind it. I'd go with Spring Breakers. That's fine for me. Again, playing the bracket game, but also I think A Ghost Story is the better movie, and I love the idea that The Ghost Story was more of a throwaway for it. It was like I like this is that movie that we always talk about, the in between movies from the big blockbuster directors.
Exactly.
When they want to go take a break. Book of Henry was one. That I always forget the one from Avengers. What's his name? Josh Whedon's was.
Much Ado About Nothing? Or?
Yeah, Who Cares About? Yeah, this one at least was a lot more style. You get what I mean? Like, this one at
Yes.
least felt more authentic to him. But Spring Breakers, to me, I'm okay with it going here. But if this was a Kanye bracket, Spring Breakers would be the bound 2 of the bracket. So I'm going to give it to you this one time, all right? I'm going to let you finish it on this one. But no mas.
We'll get back. We'll get back to it.
We'll get
All
back
right.
to it.
Round 2. Lady Bird versus Swiss Army Man. So I'm going to go ahead and say something a little controversial. I think Swiss Army Man is a more interesting movie. I think there's a lot of really interesting things going on in that movie related to obsession and suicide and depression. And I think that the filmmaking is inventive in a way that we're not yet giving it credit for, but we might after the Daniels make a few more films. Look, I love Lady Bird. I'm going to watch that movie a bunch more, but my vote is narrowly to Swiss Army Man.
If I'm chilling with the boys, I'm putting on Swiss Army Man.
Yeah.
If I'm going out in public and I have to turn in a resume and they ask what's your favorite movie, I can't put Swiss Army Man. You know what I mean?
No, I
And this
know.
isn't to say Lady Bird's a safe choice. I really do like Lady Bird. I really do. I love Lady Bird. Actually, it was
Same.
in my top of the year. I did not expect to like it that much. I love the whole story of it being a mother-daughter perspective. Ba 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 ba. I'm gonna go with you as well, man. I did want to see Lady Bird go a little bit farther. I did, but I'm not. I would be lying.
See, this is why we should host a podcast.
We should
man.
host a podcast, man. There's just something about the energy. You know, like they say you can't visually show energy. This is energy.
Yeah.
There's energy in this movie. I know it's not for everyone, but you cannot deny the energy, and you cannot deny that you ain't humming that song, and that's why it's in the trailer. I do like Lady Bird, though.
Yeah. It is painful to see Lady Bird go. I think that's maybe the big upset that we're gonna have in this whole
Got
thing.
beat by a fart. Okay.
Yeah, the Farting Corpse movie. I cannot believe that I like the Farting Corpse movie more than Lady Bird, but I really do.
Toot its way to the top.
Obvious Child versus Good Time. We kind of just narrowly gave this one to Obvious Child, I think.
Right? So it has to go to the one that...
Yeah, I mean, I do
Right?
think Good Time was more exciting. I think I had it in my 7th slot in the top 10 last year. I know you didn't have it that high for you,
No.
but it's a really solid movie, and I think I'm more interested in rewatching it than I am Obvious Child.
But like we said, I want to see what Good Time the Safdie brothers have next.
Yes.
I love the way that they incorporate themselves into a movie. Like that. This is some like... Forget Tarantino, forget Shyamalan. The way these guys incorporate themselves to the movie, I'm like...
It's the next level.
Is that the director of this movie? Acting a fool in... Oh, it's the next level. And they almost steal their own movie. That's some incredible stuff right there. They almost steal their own movie. They have a Taika Waititi presence when they come into their own movies.
Yes.
Very excited to see what they have next. And just the performance from Robert Pattinson alone may be one of the best in this whole bracket.
So, moving on, Ex Machina versus A Most Violent Year. Now, I said I really love A Most Violent Year. I think it's a very underrated movie. I think there's something crisp and really clean and nice about Ex Machina, and it's a great little sci-fi package. I don't know. I think I narrowly go Ex Machina here, but I'm definitely swayable if you feel strongly.
I would go A Most Violent Year. Just a little bit. I'll go A Most Violent Year, mainly for the rewatch. I think, and hear me out on this, Ex Machina is very good, and I do need to see it once more now that time has passed and I haven't seen it since, what was it, 14, 15?
Yeah.
A lot of what builds up Ex Machina is whether he is or isn't
Right.
a robot or whatnot. Once you know he's not and you rewatch it again, you're waiting for those scenes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not to say they're not powerful, right? I'm not going to say that some of these other movies don't have that either.
No,
but
totally. It's the thing with thrillers is that sometimes you're no longer on the edge of your seat when you know where it's going to go.
Right, that's the thing with a thriller. With a joke, you want to hear it again. With a thriller, I'm not saying that it's not. You're still not looking at it and going like, oh, the way this is shot, the way that he's actually doing that on the screen, and even the metaphor of what it has to do, instill the realizations of what he's going through and all that. But I think that takes a little bit off of it. I'm also one of the ones that feels this. I think Ex Machina is a prequel to the real story. I've always felt that. I feel like Ex Machina is the prequel to the real story, right?
Which,
the real
in a
story
way, is kind of what makes it
It's really
interesting.
cool. Yeah, that is very cool. Do not get me wrong.
Yeah.
I am also not a fan of the dancing. I'm not saying it's bad. So I can't say it's not that I'm not a fan of.
You don't
want
want to tear up the fucking dance floor, man?
No, I'm sick and tired of getting this gift sent to me. Is what I'm saying. I get it. It's Oscar Isaac. I love him more than the next time. But if I tell you you want to go party or whatever, I don't want to see a gift of Oscar Isaac. I want to know where we going. I would say a most violent year, but for a little bit. But
man, I'm gonna go with you. I mean, I love A Most Violent Year. I think there's a lot of stuff that's really clever and underrated about that movie, and the way that it talks about paranoia and just fear is really interesting, and it doesn't do it in a way that beats you over the head. I like I think every J.C. Chandler movie is underrated, but this one in particular, so I'm happy to go Most Violent Year.
I know a lot of people like Ex Machina, though. Like, some people, that's their winner, Ex Machina.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to inform you that it ain't for this one.
The Lobster and Room. Keep trying to say The Room. I mean, I know which way I'm going, but
Lobster.
yeah, you're gonna go Lobster as well.
It's more inventive, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna use the same logic that I used for the other one.
Yeah, it's just by far a more unique movie. Even
I
though
pick up
Room is
new
great.
things.
Sorry?
I pick up new things every time I
Oh
watch
yeah,
Lobster.
exactly. Yeah, I think you kind of can get most of what you need from one watch of The Room, and there's a lot in The Lobster. So I'm happy to go with Lobster. Moonlight versus The Spectacular Now. We talked about why we like The Spectacular Now, but I don't know.
You want me to pick?
Go ahead.
Alright. I would put The Spectacular... Oh, wait, no, it's Moonlight! Ah! It's Moonlight, dude. It's Moonlight. I have seen... I've seen it. I saw Moonlight a ridiculous amount of times in 1 week because I was taking film classes, and they decided to show it in both of the classes. Yeah. After I had seen it, after I had shown it to my girlfriend, after I had made a video on it, and I was just like, I had seen so much Moonlight, I was like, I've seen this so many times. And then, like, time had passed and it was on, I was like, you know, at the beginning, every is a star. I was like, man. There's something about this movie and the way that it's shot. It is a fantastic movie. It really is. Yeah, I get excited every time I see someone from the cast in another thing.
Same. I mean, there's a way that movie is able to give you these glimpses into a life that doesn't feel overbearing, but feels like really authentic to this tough experience. And it feels true, emotional, and beautiful in every turn. So yeah, it's not losing yet.
That chair scene.
Oh, man, that chair scene. Enemy versus The Disaster Artist. I think this is a tough one.
That's not for me.
No?
Mm-mm.
Are you going Enemy?
Bro, I already spoiled this bracket. Look, The Disaster Artist is the one I watch with my boys. Enemy is... You know, you have those few moments where it's transcendent? Mm-hmm. That was the last time I had it.
Yeah, I mean...
That was the last time I had it.
Watching Enemy made me want to see everything that Denis Villeneuve has done.
Watching Enemy made me apologize to every woman I've ever dealt with in my life.
It's an effective film.
Enemy is that movie that while you're watching it, you don't know why it makes you feel something, but you're like, I don't know what they're doing, but it's working. Yeah. Because some people don't get it when they watch it, but they feel something. There's no doubt about that. And going back to the end of the Skin Saw, because I believe they came out probably the same year.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I mean, going back to my point. I'm okay with you being ambiguous, but I need the director to know what they're talking about. And I feel Under the Skin doesn't do that. Enemy overdoes it. You want to know how much they overdo it? You know how much they overdo it. The whole spider thing? What do you make them do? What did he make them do? They signed a contract. The actor signed a contract to never reveal what the spiders actually mean. It's my personal favorite Denis Villeneuve movie, and one of my personal favorite movies of all time.
Yeah. Enemy is definitely one that needs to be caught up with if you haven't seen it. Definitely.
But Disaster Artist is so good though too. Don't get me wrong.
Another one that we're sorry to see go.
Wait, are you agreeing with me? If you don't agree with me, that's fine.
And look, I'm not as big of an Enemy fan. But I know there's a lot of people that like love Enemy. I don't love it to that same level. I will say though, as soon as I watched it on DVD the first time that I watched it, as soon as it ended, I started it again and watched it. So,
Bro, we got to talk about it. We got to talk about it afterwards. We'll come redo this bracket 2.0. But, oh, man, there's just something about Enemy. It's something about Enemy.
The Witch and the Florida Project. This one is kind of easy for me.
Go ahead.
Think The Witch is cool, but it's not nearly as meaningful or beautiful to me as Sean Baker's Florida Project. So
that's fair.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I'll go with that as well. I do think The Witch is a good movie. I'm very curious to see what Robert Eggers, I believe is his name. Very curious to see what he does next. David Eggers?
Maybe that's an author. I don't know.
I know his last name is Eggers. So Mr. Eggers, when he comes up with his next thing, I know they said he's going to work on Nosferatu. I just love his style. One of my favorite things about The Witch is these two things. Is how he shot with the trees, the specific ratio that he had for the trees. And the second one was this interview where he said, where someone asked, you know, they always ask you, excuse me, what first time advice would you give a first time director who's working on the feature film? And he answered in the most gangster way possible. He says, I don't think I'm the person you should ask. I think you should just go out and do it. They said, why do you think that? He said, well, there's the 3 things that they tell you to never do in film school, especially as a first time director. Do you know what those 3 things are? Don't ever work with children. Don't ever film near water. And don't ever work with animals. That is what The Witch is. That is dope.
Yeah, he's a badass, and that movie is really beautiful. Mm-hmm. I kind of want to give the edge to the Florida Project.
I'm giving it to the Florida Project.
Such a humanistic, empathetic movie. I didn't mention it, but I actually rewatched that on my flight as well.
You're getting your 40-hour flight, yeah.
Yeah, and just getting another look at that purple hotel and the way that so much chaos exists around the movie, but Mooney's view is so much like through it and not focusing on it. I just think it's so artfully done.
It really is. It's a nice movie.
While We're Young versus Spring Breakers. So
This is you. Go ahead. You have your fun, man.
Look, I mean, these are my picks, and I know you had your thing with Spring Breakers shouldn't go any further. I think it should go past
over
While
We're Young.
Yeah, I kind of think so. I kind of think
over Mrs. Watts.
I know. I love my girl Naomi. You know I love Naomi.
Over Kylo Driver and his hipsterness.
I know plagiarizing documentary filmmaker Adam Driver is a great Noah Baumbach creation. I love seeing Ben Stiller in a more serious performance. Man, Spring Break though. It's Spring Break. James Franco in dreads. You never get that.
You do you, man. I'm just here. That's fine. I'm cool with it. Whatever.
All right.
I'm not gonna fight for While We're Young. And you're right. I do quote Spring Breakers way more than While We're Young. Spring Breakers has a scene that I visually remember that I think it has a better scene than anything of While We're Young. So
yeah. So we're moving on to our quarterfinals here. We got Swiss Army Man up against Good Time, and for me, I think it's a pretty easy win for Swiss Army Man.
We're really making that fart movie go all the way.
I know. This is Minority Report all over again.
Right. I'm good with it. I really am, because I do think Good Time's good.
Yeah.
But maybe on more rewatches, Good Time may go up there. But Swiss Army Man. There's a whole conversation piece that goes with Swiss Army Man, and I don't want to spoil it all, but it's very intriguing when you think about the ending. And Swiss Army Man does have Ramona Flowers at the end of it. That I do know.
Okay, yeah, that one's true. That I know. And then we have A Most Violent Year up against The Lobster. I think this is an interesting matchup.
I'm going A Most Violent Year, but if you can really sway me on The Lobster.
I'm not going to sway you. I mean, for me, I think it's pretty even. I think The Lobster is really unique and hilarious, but like I've said before, I think A Most Violent Year is extremely underrated. The way that it sort of deals with the era and Oscar Isaac's character, I think it's just so interesting. And you can keep getting more from it on the rewatch. I'm very happy to go to Most Violent Year here.
I'm down for it. I mean, like I said, I think in terms of like, I know we were talking about one of the previous episodes about the HBO show, The Sopranos. Was it Sopranos? Sopranos coming back for another season or something like that?
Yeah, it's coming up for the movie.
I'm still excited for The Irishman, and I hope that there's something there. And I look at it, and the closest thing that I want it to be is a most violent year. So I'm okay with it going. I personally, and again, this being our bracket.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of people haven't given it the attention. So, if you're watching this and you're like, how is it getting ahead? Have you seen it? No? Give it a watch. Give it a watch.
No, I mean, I think a lot of people really do love The Lobster, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's some people in the comments down below who are like, how do you pick this over The Lobster? I love Lobster. That was one of my favorite movies the year that came out. Most Violent Year, I think there's a lot there. I really want people to check that one out. Moonlight versus Enemy. I think we got to talk about this. I think we got to talk about this. I mean, these are both really great movies from really cool filmmakers. They're both movies that we've both rewatched a lot and that benefit from getting able to experience them over and over again. One a little bit more so than the other, but I think there's a resonance to Moonlight in a way that maybe Enemy doesn't have. Yet Enemy...
Boy, you tiptoeing.
Yet Enemy has kind of a philosophical air and a little bit like of a mind-altering, mind-expanding
a little bit
feel to it.
What do you honestly feel? Go ahead. Tell me. I know you honestly want Moonlight. I know you do.
I would go Moonlight. I
do.
I think it's narrowly Moonlight's, but I think it's the better movie.
Look, I can be unbiased with it. I know that a lot of it comes into, again, Enemy no doubt fits into that under the skin annihilation type of movie where it's like you're either with it or you're not. It's you go into it and you go, wow, that was really good. That was pretentious. It goes in there with a ghost story. I know that one of the other ones, a ghost story, Under the Skin, that's their Enemy for whoever that is. And I know that there's just something about Enemy that for me give it all. Now I have my reasonings for it and where I truly believe that the filmmaking in it is a lot better than ones like Under the Skin. A ghost story. That's why Denis Villeneuve is my favorite director working today. So while I do have my reasons for it, and I would argue for it more and more, like I really will, more than the bias that I can ever have for it, Moonlight is just way more accessible. And I say that by still admitting to the fact that I don't believe every movie needs to be universal. And Moonlight definitely isn't, right? Like there's that idea, oh, let's make something, but then you strip away a lot of it. But Moonlight does that thing where they present to you three radically different looking people.
Yeah.
And you still buy it.
Yeah.
Because of what the story is telling you and how much you shift with the certain actions in life.
Yeah, and it's a movie that takes advantage of all the things that you don't see, too. I think that's a really incredible thing to pull off. It's similar to the things that I love about Boyhood, but it does it in a different package.
Oh, come on now. It did everything I wanted Boyhood to do. And I believe his name is Trevante Rhodes. It gave us Trevante Rhodes.
It did give us Trevante Rhodes.
I'm fair with that. I'm good with that.
Cool. So we're going Moonlight, and then it's The Florida Project versus Spring Break.
Now you're playing right now, okay? Just because they both take in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta go Florida Project.
I'm not gonna let you disrespect it now.
I like Spring Breakers a lot. But Florida Project, I think, is a really great movie. We've talked on this podcast about why we both think it's really good. So I think we're both happy with that one advancing.
Enemy, yes.
So then we got Swiss Army Man versus A Most Violent Year to find out which one goes to the finals.
Bro, we about to post the winner as the fart movie. Let's go.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Swiss Army Man. We're going to. We got to get there first before I make a comment. But yes, I'm picking Swiss Army Man over A Most Violent Year. I don't know why, really, at this point. My mind is just racing at a certain point where I'm looking at this whole thing and I cannot believe that it beat Lady Bird.
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys.
Good Time, Ex Machina, The Lobster, Green Room, both rooms, and I personally think it beats A Most Violent Year. If we're talking about A24 and the risk that it takes, these are, I think, the risks that it takes, and I think it pays off because, like we're talking about, you usually see a movie and that's the movie right there. Maybe it spawns off some roles. It's like a Frankenstein. They're taking bits and pieces of the movie to use in other things.
Yeah.
Harry Potter is in this movie. He is the farting corpse.
And you don't think of him as Harry Potter either. Like
Exactly. I know
it's
that
hard enough to do that. I don't.
I know that
I
it's so cartoonish, but when we talk about Robert Pattinson having such a good role and good time, Daniel Radcliffe did it better. It's
I think
just he's farting.
Yes, I think this kind of evokes the discussions we've had about BoJack. How sometimes the most ridiculous comedy gives you the most profound and deep moments. And this is a movie where a guy riding a farting corpse will make you cry. And I do not feel bad saying that. It's like, I never thought that I would love when I heard about this at Sundance, like the farting corpse movie. I was so annoyed at the existence of it. But it proved me wrong. It's inventive in every single frame. One of the most inventive movies I've ever seen.
And that was part of the movie. You being upset before even giving it the chance, part of the movie. You just had to sign, seal, and deliver with that BoJack thing. I've been saying that phrase, especially for the last week or so. Comedies give you the most dramatic moments. It's the farting corpse movie.
On the other side of the bracket, we got two recent Oscar nominees, the Oscar winner, Moonlight, and the Oscar nominee, The Florida Project. I like Florida Project a lot, but I don't think I'm going to go for it here. I think it's Moonlight.
It's Moonlight.
So we're down to a final of The Farting Corpse Movie versus A24's Best Picture winner. How do you choose? How do you even choose?
You know what we're picking. I just don't want to be the one to say it.
I love Swiss Army Man. I've seen Swiss Army Man way more than I've watched Moonlight.
I'm going to put it to you this way. The LGBT community is always welcome here on the Intercut. I know people like to feel away whenever they think that they forget that we're talking about movies here. Last thing I need... How dare you? You love releasing gas over the triumphant Pride movie that was ours.
I've never
Enemy's
seen
my
like
favorite
Swiss Army
A24
Man.
movie.
Yeah.
But in this bracket, the way the cards have been played, Swiss Army Man is inventive.
Yeah.
The Daniels have, and here's the thing, the Daniels have yet to make the movie yet. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about? When we look back at their career, Swiss Army Man is going to be one of the movies that they made before the movie. You know what I mean? They've yet to make that one. And I'm glad to be on the path that they're on right now. Because when they finally make that movie, everyone's going to go like, yo, that's great. And then you're going to go back and watch. Right? Mm-hmm. Like Taika. People are barely going back and watching his movies. Right?
I wonder even if, like, when we see more from the Daniels, maybe we won't feel as highly about Swiss Army Man. Maybe we'll be like, oh, that was only the start. Like, they're taking this aesthetic even further. Or maybe that aesthetic turns into something that feels more like a gimmick. I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
I think Swiss Army Man is brilliant. It's emotional. It's hilarious, and it's touching.
There really is a lot. There really is a lot to it. And if you're one to have dismissed it, please give it another chance.
Yeah. And it's also just like one of the... I think what's great about it ending up at the top of our A24 bracket is it's maybe the epitome of the kind of movie that we probably wouldn't get wide release for without A24.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Minority Report versus Swiss Army Man. Who you giving it to? All these other movies are great. Movies are great. Moonlight is a fantastic movie. Ex Machina is a fantastic movie. Enemy is one of my personal favorites of all time.
Yeah.
But in terms of the way that we played this bracket between both of us, Intercut is your official... Is it a Razzie? Technically.
Intercutty?
It's your Intercutty? Well, I'm saying it's a Razzie because that's what happens in the movie. But Swiss Army Man, it utilizes its story and its craziness just like the title suggests, and I say if you have not watched it, give it a chance. If you've seen it before and you dismissed it, give it a chance.
Yes, please do. It's a really great movie that we enjoy a lot here at Intercut. So that does it for our A24 bracket. Let us know down below where we went wrong. I'm sure you will.
They're going to say round one. They're going to say the first one.
What about Lady Bird, bro?
Ugh.